Warning, this video is gonna have loads of swearing words in it and it might be a bit long. Alright, this is the Invaders #1 and some peeps, that is short for peoples, some peeps might be getting annoyed that I keep calling it the Invaders when it clearly says on all the covers the new Invaders. What you see here is the thing down in the indicia. It just says Invaders. I can't get any closer to show it or it'll go out of focus, but it just says Invaders down there. They changed the title for the covers. I think they added the new part to try and subconsciously maybe try to remove it from association with the original direction of this team, which we had already seen in a lead-in story in the Avengers. And that is what I'm going to be talking about in this video. The original pitch for this team of Invaders and how it was bad. First though, we have a double page spread. Here it is. A double page spread showing us all the members of this team. We have Atomic Skull, Plastic Man, Fire Spit, u.s.agent John Walters. But listen to what he's saying there, because he isn't u.s.agent in this. He is Captain freaking America. Or just Captain America without saying freaking in the middle of it. Then we have Seaman in a weird costume that he never wears again. And finally, Jack's staff. I really like this book and this team, but I hate how it began. But I love what we eventually got. This is written by some guy who worked on King of the Hill and then never wrote another comic again. And the art isn't great this issue, but we will come back to that later on, because as I said, this book, it was set up beforehand in a few issues of the Avengers. What we are having here is we are seeing the team fighting them insect drones who you have seen in my reviews of issues 2 and 3. They are fighting them and saving the original human fire from them. That other story, the one that was in the Avengers, that was by John Jeffries and Bucky Larson. But from what I understand, it was mostly Bucky Larson. I think John Jeffries' contribution, it didn't go beyond leaving a note behind at the office suggesting that they bring back the Invaders as a modern team opposite the Avengers. So Bucky Larson, he decided to pursue that idea. And there is a bloody good reason that Bucky Larson is consistently considered one of the worst comic book writers of all time. He decided that the Invaders, they would be a right-wing paramilitary group that invade foreign countries and overthrow the governments and kill dictators and didn't give a shit about any innocent people living in them places caught in the crossfire. Whether or not you personally agree with that as a course of action, it is not an appropriate thing to force characters like Jack's staff here or others like Seaman or Fire Spit. It's not appropriate to force them into the role of being an aggressive and lethal invading force. They had been depicted as heroes for decades. They are heroes. Seaman, obviously, there's a lot of grey area with him. But Jack Staff, for example, he is just a hero. Fire Spit, she is just a hero. And while you might think toppling a regime in the third world is a good thing, these characters' DNA is not. Jack Staff, he has a deeply ingrained character motivation. He wants to represent the common man, the lower classes of Britain. So it just doesn't make any sense for this character to be a part of that sort of thing. This is also true of most of them. Fire Spit is a wealthy heiress. She is like a philanthropist. She has only ever been shown to be a good person. Her and Jack Staff, well, Captain America, he considers them to be like very good friends and great superheroes. Taking these characters and putting this on them, well, it's no different from when they made Snowman gay, in my opinion. It is weaponising these characters for bullshit. It's just tossing out any established canon in favour of political agenda and a writer preaching their own bullshit. And the same is true of John Walters. John Walters, that character really got it bad. He was meant to be the one who put together and led this new version of the team, the original version anyway. This was all his thing, he was responsible for it. His objective was to invade another country, kill the government, and not give a fuck about any women or children killed in the streets. We explicitly had a scene in that story where we saw a woman and her child. They were about to be crushed by some debris, and John Walters shrugged his shoulders because they were not Americans. We hadn't been written terribly throughout, and his character was just reset into a mode that he hadn't ever been in since like his first ever appearance. He was now suddenly of the mindset that he was automatically better than Captain America and that he should be Captain America, and then he is beat with a single punch by Captain America. Oh, later on, he learns that Red Skull Man had been involved in this whole plan to overthrow this country's government. And rather than have u.s.agent admit it was a mistake or that he had no idea about Red Skull Man, instead, u.s.agent, he goes, well, Red Skull Man, he had a few good ideas. So that original story, it was meant to be 4 parts, and the first 3 parts, they are all written with this original direction in mind. But then the 4th part comes out, and suddenly it's this writer here and this artist. They are making the comic, and it does a complete U-turn, and it turns out there is now a whole hidden plan to replace governments with robot copies. And what the invaders were actually doing, they were gunning around and hunting down these fake robots. They were trying to stop them. They weren't just committing war crimes or voicing Bucky Larson's blatant personal racist ideologies about the Middle East and how everyone in the Middle East deserves to die. The Invaders were now involved in this last-minute swerve plot about a greater hidden threat. It is very stupid, but I am thankful for it. So in this, we get a lot of stuff explaining the robot copy thing, and even little things like, this was some tawdry shite. u.s.agent, he was using this shield in that Bucky Larson story, and he claimed that he had the names of all the 9/11 victims written on it. That is just a desperate and very pathetic idea. It is just a crap writer trying to evoke 9/11 as a justification for his politically questionable story. But also, it is stupid because you couldn't fit all the victims' names on the fucking thing anyway. And here, we quickly destroy this shield and we get rid of it so that u.s.agent, he can adopt a new shield with less melodramatic pandering. Another thing was, a big thing actually, in that fourth part of the story, Plastic Man, he shows up out of nowhere and he is revealed to be the one directing this team after having not been mentioned or alluded to even once in the first 3 parts. So all this leads to this issue and this spin-off book, which was doomed to fail, but I am glad they went the other way and it turned out to be a good book. This first issue it's a bit shaky. A lot of it is trying to resolve or better set up this team. The art here, and in that fourth part of the original story, it's a bit messy. The characters aren't always drawn in the right costumes. There seems to have been some confusion between whether they were canon with the original designs or not. For example, Seaman earlier, he never wears this costume or fingerless gloves anywhere else. For this and that fourth part, it isn't either of these creators at their best. I would personally start with issue 2 of the series. This one is mostly resolving or addressing issues with what came before. Like, we actually have a really good scene here with Jack's staff and Fire Spit, where Mr. King of the Hill, the writer, and I know about him beyond him working on King of the Hill, because that is what they said on the back of the trade paperback. Well, he acknowledges what I said about Jack Staff's character and his motivation, and how it made no sense for him to suddenly be a part of this group and be a reactionary right-wing mercenary. Very nicely done, and it also starts setting up a love triangle between him and Fire Spit and the original Human Fire, which doesn't get canon anywhere because the book was canned with issue 9. And when it comes to things that didn't really lead anywhere, there is also this lass. She is a secondary character in the book. She is a fire android like the original Human Fire. She has no development and no resolution. I think they were setting her up to have a sort of father-daughter thing or brother-sister dynamic with her and the original Human Fire. The original Human Fire, that was another thing that this writer brought in. He actually wasn't in the setup story. And through the Human Fire, he voices a lot of the problems with that whole right-wing war criminals angle. And that is why so much of this first issue is spent fixing or rewriting stuff from that bad story. As I said though, I don't know if I recommend this issue itself. It's mainly worthwhile as a curiosity. You are seeing a comic do a complete 180 with the setup. It's no surprise that the series failed. It's a shame because it is a great series, but firstly, you turned off a lot of people with the original idea, and the leading story, it wasn't even good regardless of the bad writing or the use of characters. Then anyone who maybe saw that and did really get into this stupid idea of John Walters and Jack's staff committing war crimes and invading countries, they would have dropped the book straight away because it went out of its way to disavow the idea of that. And then, to the few remaining people, the people who were fortunate enough to miss that Avengers story and pick this up as a first issue, well, a lot of it is spent tidying up after Bucky Larson did a big poo on everything. I do really recommend this series. This issue, it has one or two alright scenes, but it is not a good representation of the 8 fantastic issues that follow. I am gonna give this one a 7 thumbs up.